An FBI whistleblower's transcript testimony regarding an investigation into Hunter Biden was released yesterday. The House Oversight Committee interviewed the former FBI supervisor last month. He was responsible for opening the Bureau's investigation into the president's son and remains anonymous. The whistleblower testified that the 2020 transition team of then-President-elect Biden was tipped off about a planned FBI interview with his son, Hunter Biden, and that the interview never took place as a result. That corroborates allegations made by a former IRS investigator turned whistleblower, Gary Shapley. The whistleblower said he understood why FBI headquarters had to inform the Secret Service headquarters, but not Biden's transition team. The U.S. Navy is now the third military service without a Senate-confirmed Chief of Staff. Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Mike Gilday retired on Monday. This marks the first time in history 3 military branches have no Senate-approved leader. The spate of unconfirmed nominations is driven by Senator Tommy Tuberville. He's blocked around 300 nominations. Tuberville is protesting federal funds being used to cover travel costs for service members getting abortions. Tuberville maintains it's a violation of the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits federal funds for abortion. Usually nominations are approved in large batches by unanimous consent. Now each nomination must be voted on individually, which slows down the process, especially with Congress on break until September 12th. President Biden had already nominated a replacement to lead the Navy. Admiral Lisa Franchetti currently leads in an acting capacity. Harvard must pay $15 million of legal fees in the race-based admissions fight. A judge has ruled that the university's secondary insurance provider has no obligation to cover the cost. The debt is from the school's failed attempt to defend its use of racial preference in admissions. Harvard bought an excess insurance policy with Zurich American Insurance for millions of dollars in legal fees. Harvard was supposed to formally notify Zurich within 90 days of passing the $25 million cap in order for the secondary policy to kick in. The 90-day window closed in January 2016, but Zurich didn't receive a written notice from Harvard until May 2017. Harvard sued Zurich and claimed the company knew about the pending lawsuit because of extensive media coverage. But the court says Harvard's failure to give notice according to the policy's terms and conditions forfeits any right to coverage. A Wisconsin couple previously charged in connection to the Antifa-linked Kenosha, Wisconsin riots in 2020 has now been sentenced for a robbery 2 years later. The couple is also known for shooting a warning shot at Kyle Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse was 17 years old when he shot 3 people at one of the riots, but was cleared of all charges on self-defense claims. In this new case, Joshua Zeminski was out on bail for his involvement in the riots when he and his wife went on a crime spree, resulting in 7 felony charges. A victim identified the couple as 2 of 3 people who attempted to rob him. Kelly Zeminski said that they were trying to get $200 the man owed her and that he sexually assaulted her. She denies anyone had a weapon, but both pleaded guilty to burglary and robbery with threat of force charges. Joshua Zeminski was sentenced to 3 years in prison, and his spouse, Kelly Zeminski, faces a 20-month sentence. Additional charges were dropped in exchange for a plea deal. Joshua Zeminski will also see all earlier charges related to the 2020 riots dismissed. Gregory Copley, thank you for joining us again.
Good to be with you.
Gregory, experts have said China is heading for a decade or more of economic stagnation. How do you view the country's economic outlook?
I think it's more than just a decade of economic stagnation. We're seeing a reversion to the Maoist policies of population control, which will include mass starvation. I think we're looking at really economic collapse. And what will accompany that is, of course, the possibility of the removal of the Communist Party of China. But certainly we're looking at economic collapse in many different forms.
So some suggest that a bailout is needed to get the Chinese economy going again, but that China doesn't have the resources to make that happen. What other options do they have?
Well, economic stimulus certainly is not working, and they've attempted that over the past few months with great failure. So the only step now is population control. and that is starting again with the announcement of a new strain of COVID, so that people have to be quarantined, that have to be confined to hospitals or their home. That's probably unlikely to work. The other problem is a possible distraction by Xi Jinping in the form of a war, which he's constantly called for against Taiwan. And that may provide a diversion, if you like, from the internal problems and allow the government to impose sacrifices on the population. That, however, is unlikely to work too. The People's Liberation Army themselves have indicated that they would not support such an action.
And how do the restraints the government there has placed on private business over the past 3 years factor into the overall state of the economy there?
Well, the only resilience we've seen in the PRC economy has come from the private sector. The so-called Chinese economic miracle was not a miracle of the Communist Party of China or the government. It's been a response by the Chinese population, who are naturally entrepreneurial and been very productive. That's all gone. The Xi administration has wiped that out since 2012, and particularly in the last couple of years. So there's no resilience in the economy whatsoever at this stage to respond to either the domestic requirements or to fulfill Xi Jinping's threat of war.
That sort of feeds into my next question. You recently wrote about how China is gearing up for war without a wartime economy. Explain that for us a little bit more.
Xi wants to use his bombast, his wolf warrior diplomacy, to appear strong on the home stage and to look strong on the regional and international stage. He's done this by calling for war on Taiwan so that Taiwan could be incorporated into the communist Chinese framework. To have a war economy is critical if you're going to wage war. That means you have to be able to understand how you can command all of your resources of state in terms of minerals, production, industry, and the like, food production being of critical importance, so that you can conduct this war. And one of the things is that Xi Jinping has not ensured that this war economy is in place. In order to wage war, you have to marshal your economy. Xi Jinping has not done that, cannot do that. People's Liberation Army is aware of that, which is why they've been indicating that they would resist pressures to go to war.
Gregory Copley, President of the International Strategic Studies Association, thank you.
Thank you.
A drink made from fermented horse milk is popular in Kyrgyzstan. The beverage has been a staple of the Central Asian region since at least the 5th century, and it's an acquired taste. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the horse's brew.
Kumis is a traditional nomadic drink made from mare's milk. This annual festival in Kyrgyzstan is the place to be to learn how to brew it.
I came especially for this wonderful festival, which takes place in this beautiful, beautiful Chunkerchak pasture. Even without a festival, I come here to drink mare's milk for health treatment and at the same time to breathe fresh air, relax.
An array of large and small kumis companies showcased their products at the event. Some demonstrated ancient methods like using traditional wooden milk barrels.
We used to use such milk churns. They were made without a single nail, made by special masters, our fathers. Such a barrel was mainly used on pastures. Milk was poured here and stirred, turning it into kumis.
An even more ancient type of container is made from animal hide.
This churn is made of goat skin. It was convenient for the Kyrgyz to carry it along filled with kumis on a horse. They would put 2 milk churns on the horse at once. And for storage, a milk churn was made of cow skin. The churns were washed every 4 to 5 days and smoked on a pine tree.
Kumis production is often a family business in Kyrgyzstan. This farm is home to more than 100 horses, including 60 dairy mares. The owner has switched to mechanical milking, a new method in the country. Most milking is still done by hand.
The reason why we switched over to the intensive method is that the Kyrgyz milk one mare for only 1 month. Let's say they milk for 2 months, but it rains sometimes during these 2 months. So they lose mares for several days, and with such losses, pure milk is obtained during 1 month only.
Activities at the event included national games, songs, and dances.